Hi Daniel, this is the video feedback for your animation simulation component 2. So what I'll do first is I'll talk a little bit about the simulations and then I'll go into the document as well. So overall, the simulations that you've got, I guess, do work, but you've probably recognized that there's a lot of room for improvement. So I'll just load that up again. And it's specifically to do with how they emit and how they work, so especially that shot there. So in terms of water simulation, obviously that doesn't look realistic, but it gives the idea, gives the concept in terms of the story and supports what's going on. But the overall execution of the water simulation needs a lot more development. So you can kind of tell it's kind of coming out in a row of beads that rather than a flow of liquid. So that needs to be addressed a lot more. It does, however, give the idea that there's a drip, but maybe it just needs to be worked on so that you actually get the essence of how it drips and then separates when it hits the basin of the sink, whereas this is just a kind of continual chain of spheres. And if I just rewind that again, and you can kind of see them the way they lead off just to this side here rather than falling down the drain as well. So there's a bit of work that you could do there to improve that. Maybe incorporating elements of Bifrost, scaling it down, having one simulated drop, and then kind of seeing that disperse in the basin of the sink would have worked a little bit better, making that look a lot more realistic. And in terms of the curtains, the cloth simulation that you've got on there, it was just way too springy. So you need to change some of the parameters that you've got because it looks like it's elastic material more so than anything else. Another thing as well, I probably would have pinned more vertices along the top edge of your curtain. So just wait for this to play along here. I would have just selected that whole row all the way along and then just pinned them. That would have reduced the amount of springiness because at the moment it's playing, it's simulating between each one of these vertices. So that's one thing that you can do. But the other thing is the kind of material that is being simulated probably just needs to be edited in order for it to work. In terms of the overall narrative, it's fine. The concept of the story is fine, but the simulations are not a massive role within the overall narrative. So I would probably review how you could incorporate that slightly more. Again, a part of that is having really cool, really awesome looking simulations. So having them looking right, kind of physically correct, simulating correctly. That then doesn't give the necessity. Basically, you don't need to then have such a strong element of simulation in your scenes then because they're done so seamlessly well. And that's really what you should get across. Whereas at the moment now we kind of get this springy curtain, you can kind of get this rainfall effect of this water. The character then gets up and is animated to walk across, which is quite a large part of your overall scene. I would have liked to have seen it slightly more integrated. Maybe the character stood near the sink and has a spanner and tightens it. Either he fixes it or it kind of goes wrong and then water kind of splurts out everywhere. So something like that would have supported the overall simulation a little bit more. That then brings me on to your document. Generally speaking, the document is fine in terms of what you did. Kind of more evidence of what I was just saying here, of how it kind of just linearly kind of just flows in a straight line and works. And an exaggerated example of how the spring works as well. So what would have been better is a visual reference of all of this. So kind of looking at real life curtains, seeing how they move, seeing how they work, and then trying to replicate that in your working example in your simulation. So that would have given you something to compare and contrast with. Also then gives you something to create justifications of because you can say, well, this is what it looks like, but this is what I wanted to do, and this is the reason why. So you might have wanted springy curtains. That's fine. But you need to justify why you've done that in your document, and that's the whole purpose of this document. It just needs more of that kind of less dear diary. This is what I did, but more so, this is what I was trying to achieve. This is what I was trying to create. This is what I created, and this is what the outcome or this is what the analysis of that is. So if you do more of that, then this would be, I think, a lot better. Also, then a storyboard kind of supporting the overall narrative would have helped you understand the pacing of the the sequence. So again, less on this character here, more on the simulations.